Yeah, Rocky Marks there.
This is he.
Rocky, Edgar Snyder.
Hey, Edgar, how you doing?
Doesn't get any better than this, Rocky. Nice talking to you today.
It's great talking to you, too. I have to say, first and foremost, I remember growing up as a child, and I'm dating myself, and hopefully I'm not dating you. I grew up in Johnstown, and I remember watching some of the Pittsburgh channels because that's where the best cartoons were. And I remember seeing your commercial on TV. You've been doing this for some time.
Well, first of all, if you grew up in Johnstown, my first commercial on television anywhere was in Johnstown in 1986. That was my first TV commercial. I'd been doing print between 83 and 86. But the first commercial that I did, it was in Johnstown, and I opened up an office. I'd never been to Johnstown in my life, but I wanted to try the marketplace because it was inexpensive. And I went on Johnstown television, opened up an office on Scalp Avenue.
Oh, my gosh.
In Johnstown.
Yeah,
yeah, that was my first office. I shared a small space with a travel agent, and that's where it was on Scalp Avenue.
Wow,
so,
I grew
you
up
may
in
have seen it on you may have seen it on Johnstown television.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I grew up in Winburn, so my mom works on Scalp
well,
Avenue.
That was right down the road on 56, if I remember.
Yes, State Route 56. So, actually, you started up your business in Homestead or Duquesne.
Yeah, well, that was my practice of law. When I first graduated law school, as soon as I passed the bar examination, I opened up a street front office in Duquesne, Pennsylvania, outside of the mill, and when you came out of the mill gate. And at that time, for all those people that are not alive or were not alive when we had a mill with 9,000 people working in Duquesne, and I was outside the mill gate, and when the people left off the shift in the evening, they had to walk up the street on Grant Street in Duquesne, and that's where I had my office. And, of course, I had no clients because I just opened up the office, so I used to stand out there with a hook and bring – no, I'm just joking, but I but I stood there and I shot the breeze with all the people who were coming out of the mill gate at that time. So that's where it all started for me. I have a very soft spot in my heart for Duquesne, and I was there for probably 17, 18 years in the evenings. I used it as a night office.
Man, you're just all over the place. I'm not sure if your major in college was actually law or marketing.
Well, first of all, the smartest marketing move I ever made was marrying my wife. She was the marketing guru, and she and I got married in 1982. And 2 weeks later, we put our first ad in the Pittsburgh Press at that time for drunk driving cases. We put a little print ad in there. So I'd like to take the credit for being the marketing guru. I've learned a lot of marketing over the last 30 years, but I can't say that I knew anything at all about marketing until Sandy, my wife, got me started in it.
Wow, and obviously she's a guru herself in her own right.
If she wasn't, she is now.
Yes, absolutely. So you went to Pennsylvania State University.
Yeah, I went to Penn State and I graduated there, and then I went on to Pitt Law School.
Yeah,
and then that was in 1966, and geez, my God, I've been practicing law 46 years. It's going to be 47 next year.
Now you're dating yourself.
Well, I am over 50.
Well, yeah, just a little bit. So anyway, you have law offices all over Western Pennsylvania. How many lawyers do you have working for you?
We have 30 lawyers that work for us, give or take one or two, one way or the other. It just depends on what day it is. We have 30 lawyers who work for us. Most of us are in Pittsburgh, but we have lawyers in Evansburg, Altoona, and Erie. And everybody else is down here. We have about 125 full-time people, about 15 or 20 part-time people. We have a big operation.
Yeah, it's huge. I heard a rumor, and I don't know if this is true or not. Do you actually have your lawyers and your employees work in a van from Pittsburgh to Johnstown or to Evansburg?
We'll go back to the beginning when I opened up my office in Johnstown. And back even before that, when I was in the newspaper in Western Pennsylvania, I had a van. And when I was seeing people, I had a driver, and I drove out in a van because a lot of people didn't want to come to lawyers' offices. They were intimidated, still are for that matter, but the people didn't like to come to an office. I had a van equipped with a desk and everything in there. And I'd come to people's homes, and I'd call them on the phone or honk the horn, and people would come outside, and they would sit in my office. I used to tell people, and I had them, by the way, we still have a van, but we don't do the same thing with the vans anymore. We drive lawyers around.
Right.
But at the time, we used to have the van pull up, and we would say that this was the poor man's answer to the company jet.
Wow. That's funny. That's brilliant.
No, it's the truth. We named it Law Van, and we used to go out and see people, and our motto was, if you can't come to us, we'll come to you. So I did whatever it took to get business back in those days. I did it.
Wow.
You know, I wasn't nearly as well off, and I'm not talking about financially, but I mean business-wise, then as I am today.
Wow, that's amazing. So, speaking of mottos, I mean, when did there's never a fee unless we get money for you? Who thought of that, and when did that start?
I'd love to say to you that this was a genius move, and we knew that it would be my motto. I'm Jewish. I'm like Italian people. I talk with my hands. And during one of my commercials, I pointed at the television monitor, and I said, and remember, if we don't get a fee, there's no money, whatever the saying was at that time. And remember, there's no fee unless we get money for you. I just said it. And all of a sudden, everybody that saw it said, God, you look like you were talking to me in the television. And I think after that, we said, let's try it. And I started doing it in my ads. And here I am 25 to 30 years later, still pointing my finger at people. And when I walk down the street now, everybody sticks their finger out at me. Most of the people are just pointing at me, not giving me the finger.
Right.
But some of them may be giving me the finger, too. But nevertheless, that's how it all started. It was serendipity.
And I'm curious, Edgar, does it get old for you when people point and say, hey, there's never a fee unless we get money for you?
I feel that when you have a certain amount of celebrity, and I think what I was saying was back in the beginning when we started doing these ads in the early 90s, we did market research when George Bush, the father, was the president. And out in that area, in the Altoona and Johnstown area, we had higher name recognition. When they asked people who they knew me better than they knew who the President of the United States was at that time. We felt we were on the right track. That didn't say a lot for the people who didn't know who the President was. But,
but
it doesn't get old for me because I always look at celebrity this way. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Nobody forces people to have publicity, to be well known. I mean, I read all these very popular people, that aren't just local, that are national and everything, and they find it intrusive. Who makes people do this? If you can't take it and enjoy it and ride with it, I just really don't. I never understand it because you can always say, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
But I don't have any problem with it. And sometimes when I'm eating dinner in a restaurant and people say, "Can I just ask you a legal question?" And I really like to say, "No, I'm really eating my dinner," but I'm generally good humored about it. And I say, "Yeah, sure. What do you got?"
Yeah.
And,
well, you never know. It could be a lead too.
Believe me, it wouldn't be the first time. I used to tell people that when I used to go to see a client in the hospital, some of the best cases I ever got was when I was seeing clients in the hospital. I'd walk by somebody's room and they'd say, "Hey, you're Tony, come on in here. I want to talk to you." And of course, I would go in and talk to them. And sometimes I would get another case that way. So it was always good having that kind of celebrity.
Well, and obviously, it's mutually beneficial that they don't have to put up upfront fees, that you take care of that, and then you settle out towards the end.
Look, if another lawyer was on the phone, he'd say what Snyder is doing is no different than any other lawyer. If you got an accident and you come in to see a lawyer, they don't charge you traditionally. They take the cases on a contingent fee. The whole difference was the public, and I'm going back into the 80s now, the public didn't know that. They thought you had to pay for any type of legal advice. And what we did was say, hey, you can call us. It's for free. There's no charge. You don't have to pay for the phone call. It's an 800 number. I mean, back in the day, those were really important to people. And that's what other lawyers did, but the public didn't know about it. So what we did was we kind of educated the public. Even today the same thing happens. People say, "Is this going to cost me anything?" And I say to them, "Let me ask you a question. I don't know who you are, and you're on the telephone. And how am I going to bill you? I don't even know your name."
Right, exactly.
And they say, "Well, that makes good sense. Now let me tell you what happened to me." And then they tell me what happened to me. And if I think it's good, then we make arrangements to meet with them. But it's the kind of way in which it's always worked, but the public doesn't know about it.
What made you get into representing motorcyclists?
Well, first of all, as soon as we started doing commercials back in the 80s, obviously people that were involved in motorcycle accidents called us just like anybody else. We weren't doing specific. Today we do all kinds of motorcycle ads. We do motorcycle ads with cyclists, with bikers. I mean, we do everything. But back in the day, we just said if you're involved in an accident, we used to get calls from motorcycles. And when we started representing people that were injured on motorcycles, there was a perception. There still may be a perception with people that don't respect people on motorcycles. I don't think that it's all that different today, but today, of course, with the advent of all the high-priced motorcycles, there's so many people that are out there riding them that it's different than it was, let's just say, 30 years ago.
Totally
and when
agree.
we did this, people would call us, and we found that it was very difficult for people that were injured on motorcycles to recover. There was a belief that if you were on the motorcycle, you assumed the risk. And we found in representing people that the majority of people that called us were not at fault. And we determined way back that I don't know whether people have a blind spot for motorcycles. And what I mean by a blind spot, they don't see what they should see. And I think that the brain is looking for automobiles rather than a motorcycle. And I think that realizing this, insurance companies never used to want to pay us. And as you know, you don't get a boo-boo when you're in a motorcycle accident.
Oh,
mean, we don't find people that are getting my neck is sore or I have a sprained wrist. I mean, death or bad injuries, that's the terrible risk. Anybody that's on a motorcycle, even when it's not your fault, you get creamed, you're in a lot of trouble. But I think we felt the need, and we started advertising and saying to people, just because you are on a motorcycle doesn't mean you were at fault. That resonated with a lot of people back in the day because everybody felt that at that time that there were two strikes against them, even if they did absolutely nothing wrong. So I think it was natural that people started to call us, and then we realized that there was a very good market for this type of business, and that unfortunately people got very seriously injured. And of course, remember, we didn't have before 2003, there was no helmet law. I mean, you had to wear a helmet.
Right.
But people were getting seriously injured at that time that were fully in motorcycle garb. It just there's always been a need, and it's always much more difficult for people because when you pick a jury in a case where somebody's involved in a motorcycle, you have the right to ask. I'm talking about you being me or the insurance company's lawyer, has a right to say, do you ride a motorcycle? Have you ever ridden a motorcycle? Do you believe in motorcycles? Do you believe they belong? You can ask a lot of questions. If the insurance company sees any prejudice at all in their favor, they'll take advantage of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They'll try and get people on there. I've never, in any case that this office has ever tried, I don't ever remember having a person on the jury that rode a motorcycle, because you get free strikes, and you can usually strike them off. You save them for that, because anybody that's on a motorcycle would have much more empathy than a person who didn't ride a motorcycle for people, the risks that people face just being on the road. So it was natural.
One of the questions that I did ask him was, do you actually go to court, or do a lot of these cases settle outside before they even hit the courtroom?
Any serious injury case we get, almost any of them, we litigate it. But right before the case is ready to go in the courtroom, the insurance company now has done all their work, and they assess the risk. So I would say very few cases today end up in the courtroom, but most of these cases end up being litigated, where we're taking depositions, where people are under oath. They don't just pay, and I think that's what happens. But I would say to you, it's a substantial minority. More likely that you'll go to court in a motorcycle accident case representing a motorcyclist than you will in an automobile. But still, most of them, if they're good cases, if there really is not a question of fault, most of them will go the right way for us.
One thing about your firm is, and it's kind of interesting. I got in touch with your marketing coordinator, Lisa, through Twitter.
Right.
And it was a tweet that, I reached out to her, and she's like, yeah, give me a call. And there's so much technology out there for people to reach out to you for help. What should people do? Should they be in an accident? Obviously, you want them to get in touch with you real quick. But what are some of the things that they can do to help solidify their case?
First of all, let me make a suggestion to you, to the people that are listening to this. If you go on www.edgarsnyder.com, we have a whole section on there devoted to motorcycle accidents. We tell everybody exactly what the do's and don'ts are. We tell people what to do. We have everything about the Pennsylvania motorcycle helmet law, and we have actually preview what the helmet law is in every state in the United States. We talk about motorcycle insurance coverage, what people should look at, what things should get. We have a veritable treasure trove of information on the website that has to do. It has not. Obviously, you don't have to be in an accident. It's general information that's out there. I mean, we do the same thing in workers' compensation. We do the same thing in Social Security, but we specify what to do if you're involved in a motorcycle accident. When people are involved and they get hurt, and very often, remember, we're getting calls from passengers, people that are riding on the motorcycle. Sometimes the driver is at fault, and people still want to recover. But most of the time, I find that it's the motorist and the motor vehicle cars that are at fault in these accidents. We tell people you should call a lawyer and let a lawyer in our firm. We'll always get the accident report. We'll see what the situation is. We'll take a look at it. If somebody's badly hurt, we'll investigate it. We don't charge any. There's no upfront money on any of this stuff. I mean, you actually got nothing to lose. And in fact, we don't encourage people to call us and hire us and then fire us, because obviously that's not what we want to do.
Right.
But you're never paying any money on these type of cases.
All right. That's a lot of great info. You can go to edgarsnyder.com and get all that info. If you click on the motorcycle section. Edgar, the holidays are coming up. You guys do a lot of public service announcements, and you really get involved with the community.
I believe it's our responsibility. I really do. I think that if you're going to be out there, we spend a lot of time and money on don't drink and don't drive and all of the things that we believe are safety issues. I believe it in my personal life. I believe it in my business life, that you got to give back. And I think that people know that we do.
All right. Absolutely. Edgar Snyder, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Nice talking to you, Rocky.
Great talking to you, too. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.